You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a continuation of our review of the governorship and state houses of assembly elections, let's listen into the excerpts from yesterday's conversation, which was the first part in this series. It's put together by our correspondent Garba Natala.
If we say we are working with Electoral Commission demanding accountability for a better process, but the political actors are planning on ways to undermine the credibility of the process, most especially voter suppression. I think for this governorship election, that is one thing we saw. Voter suppression, locations where voters were not allowed to vote, not just Lagos, because most times, you know, because of the social media presence, most times you think it's happening only in Lagos. There were reports from other states, Lagos, Rivers, Delta, Kano, even Taraba, where we had more locations where there were attempts to disrupt the process, where people were denied their right to vote, or you voted and they were the ballot box and papers destroyed.
Politicians became generally desperate, you know, because many of them were not sure anymore of their position in their states. So that desperation, you know, was what led to this brigandage that we saw all over the place. You know, the attack on polling units, the use of thugs, and so on and so forth.
The fact remains that the nature of Kano politics and the movement of Kwakwasiya is something that is very, very superb, that no one can actually undermine. Despite the fact that the incumbent trying to ensure that the defeat should not happen. But you could see that the people have actually spoken loud and clear. And that tells you that that's one of the beauty of electoral democracy. And that tells you that Kanawa politics is something that is very unique.
The new Electoral Act provides for imprisonment for staff of the commission that derelict on their duties or breach the process, and we need to see that process is initiated post these elections, because every official who was involved in any form of manipulation or affected the process should be called to order, should be prosecuted, and if possible imprisoned. That way, when people go into INEC next elections, they will go with a sense of responsibility and a sense of accountability in the process. That is the only way we can curb impunity in our electoral system.
And joining us from our Kaduna studio for this conversation is Reverend John Joseph Hayab. Hayab is going to be joining us very, very soon. But for now, we have Professor Tanko Yahaya Baba. Tanko Yahaya Baba is of the Department of Political Science, Isamu Dafodio University, Sokoto. All right, and we'd like to welcome you to the program, sir.
Having me.
And via Zoom in Benin is Dr. Osawanu Okonzua, Public Affairs Analyst. We're glad to have you join us this morning.
Good morning, Kirian. Glad to be here.
All right, as Kirian said, we were expecting the Reverend John Joseph Hayab to be with us from our Kaduna Network Center. And as soon as that gets on, we will bring him into the conversation. Let's begin first with Professor Tanko Yahaya Baba, who is of the Department of Political Science, Usman Danfodio University in Sokoto. Professor Tanko Baba, the outcome of the governorship election in Sokoto is very interesting, but give us your panoramic sweep, if you may, of the conduct of the elections, not just in Sokoto, but in some of the neighboring states in the Northwest. What is it that the various outcomes suggest or indicate?
In Sokoto State, quite a surprising outcome. And of course, in neighboring states like Kebbi and Damfara, we are still waiting for results. The outcome in Kebbi is inconclusive. Katsina was sweeping for APC. Kano, as expected, NMPP swept the votes and returned its candidates as governor-elect of the NMPP. Of course, we know the Kwakwasiya movement shook the foundation of the political space in Kano State. In Sokoto, well, it was a very tight partisan space. And, the incumbent PDP party was defeated by its closest and rival, the APC. I mean, the electoral outcome suggests that the candidate of the APC, Ahmad Ali, was actually returned elected after a very tight struggle by these two dominant political parties in the state. But of course, we have had the previous election, the presidential and the National Assembly election, which the PDP actually won with a very small margin, and the senatorial districts and entire federal constituencies were all inconclusive, and that explains how obstructive and disruptive the previous process was. And I think during the gubernatorial election, governorship and state assembly election, the politicians who were architect of the disruption in the previous election learned their lessons, and of course there were these relative peaceful conduct, if you like, of these polls across the state, and that was essentially why we couldn't have, for instance, cancellation, massive, widespread cancellation that could result to inconclusive election in the state. But of course, the outcome of the election is greeted with mixture of feelings. Frustration, anger, anxiety, and fear on the part of the incumbent PDP, over excitement, if you like, of the APC party supporters and stalwarts because of the victory they had. And of course, we have had yesterday huge and heavy deployment of security personnel to actually forestall breach of security and breakdown of law and order in the state as a result of celebration that degenerated into intimidation, harassment of political opponents, which actually called the attention of the government of the day to deploy heavy security, armed security personnel to ensure that law and order is maintained in the state. So the state is actually calm now, but the actors are actually either reflecting on their performance of their outcomes, and the other camp actually celebrating the victory. That is the situation in Sokoto State. In Kebbi, it's inconclusive. In Zamfara, it is quite a strange scenario in Zamfara State, because up until now, no declaration is made. About 80 to 90% of the votes cast have been received, collated, and announced. Local government after local government, we are waiting only for one or two local governments for the results to be declared. But of course, the state assembly seats have been, majority of the seats have been declared, and the opposition PDP, which is the official opposition party in the state, have swept about 80% of the state assembly seats, and is also leading in votes for governorship election. A strange outcome also in Zamfara. In Kaduna, we said it was sweeping for APC. In Kaduna, a tight partisan space also in Kaduna State. Of course, winning by a slight margin, which also caused some kind of confrontational and violent outburst on the part of those who lost. And of course, it took also the government of Kaduna State to intervene with deployment of armed security personnel to ensure that law and order is maintained and peace is actually restored in the state. The same thing with Kaduna. Kano was even a bit more troubling and worrying in terms of security breach and dusk to dawn curfew.
We're going to be returning to you in the course of the conversation. We will come back to you. You have made a very good analysis of the situation in northern part of the country. But as we make progress, we will go to specifics, so that we can, make sense out of it all. Thank you indeed for your opening remarks. And now, via Zoom, we have Dr. Osawanu Okunzoa, who's a public affairs analyst and, of course, a regular here on Good Morning Nigeria. Dr. Okunzoa, what's your own view or perspective as to what has transpired since the governorship election and House of Assembly election were held on Saturday. Of course, we've had some results declared. We've also have some discrepancies recorded, or what we refer to as pockets of violence here and there, which of course my colleague said, look, it's not just pockets, but a wider kind of a violent situation that we saw all this period. But put all of that into context, and let's get your perspective to that.
Well, the central statement I'll be making is that Nigerian voters have acquired the sophistication. At the presidential election, they went one way or the other. And then most of them too, when it came to the governorship election, they either retreated or the pendulum was completely swung in their direction. So for people who are looking at the figures already, I'm trying to correlate what happened during the presidential polls with what happened during the governorship elections. They might be in for a kind of shock, and that is actually due to what I just said about the sophistication of the Nigerian voters. A place like Kano was consistent. They returned His Excellency Kwankwaso as their preferred presidential candidate, and they repeated themselves in choosing the governorship candidate on the platform of NPP. So Kano was very consistent in that. It meant they were going to sway in direction of a third party, NNPP. And across the country too, I think that was, you have some people who went in the opposite direction. In Delta, for instance, our cousin state here in Edo, the vice presidential candidate for PDP, the incumbent governor, couldn't even muster 25% of the votes for his party. But his party just won the governorship election. So you wouldn't believe in the same state. So the Nigerian voters have begun to look at particular situations, the party, the candidate, and so on and so forth. So it's a kind of sophistication we have to be on the lookout for in the days to come. As for the violent part of it, that is regrettable. Violence cannot be justified ordinarily, especially when we are talking about democratic practice. Undue influences are to be kept to the background as much as we can. But I also believe, why not justifying it, that as our political culture continuously evolves, would push some of these things to the margins, and then the true will of the people will be expressed at the ballot box without molestation.
Dr. Okunzua, I'll come back to you, but I'm going to return very quickly to Professor Tanko Baba in our Sokoto Network Center to help our viewers understand what is at play here, because the latest information that we have is that Dr. Dauda Lawal of the People's Democratic Party has defeated the incumbent governor, Matawale, of the APC. Now, the difference in votes, according to the Punch newspaper online, they said that's about an hour ago that they got the information. The PDP candidate scored 377,726 votes, and Matawale of the APC scored 311,976. Now, Matawale would appear, therefore, to be the first incumbent governor to have been ousted by a challenger. But we do know that Matawale himself had earlier on the platform of the PDP and then later defected to the APC. What are the issues at play in Zamfara politics that would have yielded this outcome?
State. Remember, this is the first time an incumbent is losing an election in Zamfara State. I think back in 2011 or 2015, incumbent Governor Mahmoud Ali Shinkafi also lost to APC candidate Abdulaziz Yari. Well, the situation in Zamfara is quite complex. One, we have the governor, incumbent governor, winning election under the platform of PDP and later the campaign to APC. The campaign is cross-carpeting from PDP to APC also was greeted by crisis within the party. Remember, there were groups, for instance, led by the immediate past governor of the state, Abdulaziz Yari, who ran for senatorial seat and won on the platform of APC. But lack of understanding between the Yari's camp and Matawale's camp was a huge crisis for the APC to manage in the state, even though there were reconciliation, and this reconciliation appeared to have been successful. But then there is resentment, reservation, fear, anxiety on the part of voters in Zamfara State. And we should also remember that Zamfara State is one state that is ravaged by banditry, kidnapping, and violent crimes all over the state. And a huge number of population in that state are displaced, economic activities grounded, we have businesses that are completely shut down, we have communities that are completely sacked. There is toll of hardship on the people of Zamfara State. And I think, just like a colleague from Edo said, there's this sophistication and high level of awareness and enlightenment that has greeted the Nigerian voters. They are making choices. Remember, in the last presidential election, APC won by a huge margin, the presidential candidate, and that two senatorial aspirants in the state won under the platform of APC. The remaining one senatorial district was declared inconclusive. But of course, when it comes to governorship, this is to say that people of the state or the voters are not really happy and convinced that the leadership of the APC-led government in the state is deserving of a return. And that explains why the votes actually went in the other direction. Remember, the state, the PDP, has no established structures, if you like. Since the beginning of this republic in 1999, PDP only won election in 2007. Not 2007. 2007, AMPP won, and the governor now transformed to PDP, and he lost. In 2019. The incumbent governor won under the platform of PDP, transformed to APC, and lost. So this is a history repeating. This is history repeating itself. So largely, we say the voter awareness, consciousness, and sophistication account for this strange outcome we have seen in Zamfara State, and this is largely connected to the fact that the security and welfare of the people of the state have not been taken seriously, so to say, by the government of the day. And the cracks that emerged after the campaign of the governor from PDP to APC have not well been cemented. And this has actually gave us this very particular outcome for a candidate who is alone, for a party who does not have structure, for a party who does not have 20% of the members of the state assembly
Thank you so much, Prof. For your analysis. As a matter of fact, you have implicit understanding of politics of the North, and I've just been wondering when people like you, who are political scientists, can key into political, struggle in the country. You talked about structure, but I'm sure that by now the issue of structure in Nigerian politics is being devalued to some extent, or demystified, if you like. Thank you indeed. We shall come back to you. Dr. Okunzoa, you talked about your... okay, before I get to you, let me inform our viewers that we now have another guest joining us from Kaduna, as we have earlier indicated, and that happens to be...
that's the
Hayab,
yeah, that's
Joseph, Reverend John Joseph Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. You are welcome to the program.
And fellow Nigerians.
Thank you so much. Now we have a through connection now. We will come to you, but let me go to Dr. Okunzoa. You mentioned your cousin state, Delta State, and I'm interested in Delta State because Delta State has a kind of unique internal politics, if you like. Because of course Delta has this history of godfatherism, because those days, of course, we knew that even when Chief Ibori was still detained in the UK, like he was still calling the shots in terms of who takes power in Delta, and that saw the emergence of Uduan and of course Okoa, who is now the outgoing governor of Delta State. And what really played out here is that to some extent that godfatherism faded away to some extent, because the right on the ground does not show that it is continuing. I wanted to do an analysis of Delta State and what happened. Omar Agege emerged from the APC and gave a good fight. So let's hear your perspective about the politics of Delta State and what has happened in this last governorship and the House of Assembly elections in that state.
Talking about godfatherism, it was widespread in the country. And in the case of Delta, I think the gentleman you mentioned, His Excellency Ibori, actually forged a kind of understanding. It's actually that alliance that is somewhat frayed. And while it was sustained, it worked. If a man believed that the cardinal office of the state, that's the governorship now, should be rotated amongst the 3 senatorial districts, I think to that extent he succeeded, because not only was he from Delta Central, Dr. Uduan was from Delta South, and then that came up to Delta North, Dr. Okowa, the incumbent. So as far as that bargain was concerned, we can say Ibori was successful. Now, other factors may have come into it. If at the end of the day, Chief Ibori wanted a candidate for governorship and the incumbent thought otherwise and sponsored a different candidate altogether, though from the same Delta Central. So the original philosophy has been maintained that no senatorial district in Delta should monopolize the governorship. To that extent, I think they are successful because they have been able to enthrone equity in the allocation of their own offices in Delta State. So it's not a personal thing. And Chief Ibori may not be going away anytime soon. So there will be another election in another 4 years. So let's see how the forces will align. And that's supposed to be a model for other parts of the country, really, because especially some states where the governorship is kept in one senatorial district on account of demographic strength. Equity is not a word we should just say for convenience. We should make sacrifices to sustain it. And as a matter of fact, at the national level, it's probably one of the reasons why the dominant political opposition party was not rewarded with a presidential ticket. Because some people actually felt that the incumbent party at the national level invested more in national integration by insisting, by the grace of some APC governors in the north, that the presidency should come to the southern Nigeria, southern part of the country. So most of these values we are trying to develop in the country that will make Nigeria a true nation state, we should not just pay lip service to them. We should make sacrifices to make them possible. So the Delta politics is still there categorically, but maybe the content will vary from time to time. So the president-elect is from Delta Central, where the governorship started from 1999. So the rotation formula has remained. So we can say congratulations to the people of Delta in that regard. Even the closest competitor, His Excellency Omar Agege, is also from the same place. Of course, they also have their sentiments there that the majority of the people in the Delta State are from Delta Central. Therefore, Delta Central should be accorded priority. Of course, it's happened now. They were the first to take the first shot in 1999. It's gone to Delta South, it's gone to Delta North, and it's back to Delta Central. So it'll probably be a model for the country, I repeat.
Dr. Okunzuwa, I just want us to clarify this point before we bring in John Hayab, in terms of the issues that may have even played out amongst those in the Delta Central Senatorial District. There seemed to have been some claim that, of course, you know, you have the Urhobos, who are the major ethnic group, but there is a sub-ethnic group known as the Okpes, of whom the governor-elect is one. And many said, look, it was their time. We're talking about those from the Eku, Obiaroko areas and so on and so forth in part of the state. Could there have therefore been a resentment against Omar Agege on account of that? To say, look, let's get an Okpe person to be governor from the Central Senatorial District?
Yes, they have prevailed in that. Nigeria, again, is still a nation state in formation because most of these ethnic nationalities have begun to assert themselves because of the benefits they feel it will have. But Delta Central is still one senatorial district. whatever the compartments you want to resort to. As a matter of fact, the Isokos of that state too originally were Urhobos, but they had a leader, Otobo, who actually felt they should have a distinct identity, and then they had the Isoko created as a political entity and so on. Originally, they were the Eastern Urhobos as well. That's the Isoko people. But today, most people recognize them as a separate entity. So, as Nigeria is evolving, people are trying to use identity to probably extract benefits to themselves and so on. So, the kind of ethnic homogeneity that people always presumed is not being challenged. Even our home state, Edo, Kingsley, our home state, it will surprise you to know, for instance, that very senior Asian people insist they are Benins. As a matter of fact, a person like Dr. Bolokoto Okoje, who wrote the Asian dictionary at the preface of that book, insisted that Asian was a dialect of Benin. But you couldn't say that today because our cousins in Edo Central, the Asian people, have a separate senatorial district. So politics is actually modeled a lot of things up. Politics is conferred some new set of benefits and so on, and people have to compete, and you have to create new platforms for all this. All the things that were once presumed to be taken for granted are now being challenged. And as a matter of fact, too, for our own state, Edo, to use our own immediate example, when Edo was created in 1991, the 39th Oba of Benin, Oba Erejawa, pronounced Edo State as the most homogeneous state in the country. But we have 3 senatorial districts in Edo. So maybe somebody might say one wing of Edo South today, oh, people have taken it from Oredo or Orion, let it go to Ovia. So it's competing for political relevance, really, that makes most of these fissions actually possible and very, very transient in terms of the claims people make. But by and large, the rotation formula in Delta State has held. And I will still insist it can be a kind of model for the country to take the offices round so that the sense of belonging will be entrenched.
From your analysis, it does appear that Godfatherism phenomenon may not go away very quickly, but in some sense, it has stabilized politics in some states, right? And as we go forward, we see what happens. Thank you, Dr. Konzo. I will come back to you. Right now, let's go to Kaduna once more. Where we have Reverend John Joseph Hayab. About Kaduna is also a very interesting state with this election. The incumbent governor, in fact, the leading party in the state, the governing party in the state, lost to the opposition party, and it's a big one. Let's know what actually happened in Kaduna. What is your assessment of Kaduna elections?
Thank you very much, Kirin. I think so that we put the record clear. The governing party won the Kaduna election. So it's the candidate of the APC that was declared winner. He had 730,000 votes to defeat his nearest opponent, who had 719,000 votes. The third person had just around 50-something thousand votes. But the interesting aspect of Kaduna politics is, look at the margin of 10,806 votes that separates the winner and the second person. They also spread of votes around, because one of the controversy in Kaduna has always been these people voted or these people didn't vote. But I think when you look at the figures, you will know that there were votes across every side. Yes, some part of Kaduna may have the strength of this vote, but there was vote virtually everywhere to justify the victory. During the presidential election, Kaduna had a different ball game. The fact about it that the People's Democratic Party in Kaduna won the 3 senatorial districts. But in this election, the APC won. So politics is about calculation, politics is about strategy, politics is about putting the right thing at the right place. One of the challenges I have seen with politics around here is the emotions of it. People go into politics with so much emotion without understanding the calculation, without understanding the strategy. One of our speakers here was talking about godfatherism, and you know, sometimes we use the word godfatherism more from a negative point, but the truth is that in every politics there are elders, there are leaders, there are stakeholders, there are people who advise, there are people who guide, there are people who help, there are people who support or lead people to see, look, this is about this, because of this, because of that. You can't separate people from doing that. Even in America, where people, or in Europe, another part of the world, where you think most people just speak their mind, it's not completely like that. People still find out, oh, wait a minute, in this game, in this particular election, what is our interest? What are our people looking for? I saw what happened in the last 2-3 weeks is simply people saying, this is what we want here. But when it comes to this one, this is what we think will work here. Yeah, other things may have happened behind the scene, but since you don't have any proof, you have to be careful before you instigate people saying what is not true. There was a contest, and there was a winner. I was sharing with some young men yesterday, and I told them, you remember during the World Cup, when the World Cup started, Saudi Arabia quickly, in the first game, defeated Argentina. And everybody get excited and felt that the era of Argentina and co is over. But Argentina eventually became the winner of the World Cup. So you have to, this is where experience and strategy comes into all the system. So you could come with some emotion and put some display in the first place, but if you don't have the understanding, the strategy, the connection, the reaching out that politics demand, you will end up just having the same thing. But for us in Kaduna, I can say it's going to be a mixed season. Why? We have 3 senators from one political party. Then we have a governor from another political party. We have more members of one other political party as members of our federal representatives. Then we may also have a situation, because the House of Assembly elections have not all been announced. I know about 3 that are inconclusive. So by the end of the day, we will see how people of this different party, PDP, APC, Labour, and whatever political interest they represent, will work for Kaduna State, because after said and done, the elections are going to be about the people of Kaduna State, or the governance is going to be about the people of Kaduna State, how we represent them, how we deliver the goods, what we do to restore confidence, what we do to win the love, what we do to win the respect, what we do to bring about peace and understanding. Kaduna have had a lot of challenge in the past few years, especially about banditry and lack of peace. Our desire is this election should be a situation where we have to blend to find solution. We have to work together to find solution. And I saw what happened yesterday as something that is teaching us to just accept one another, teaching us to just understand that these things will come, but at the end of it, Kaduna is number one. Kaduna is the most important thing, and her people. And when all these groups, because I will see how the governor will work with the senators of the other party, and I will see how the senators of the other party will come to the state and know that this is our governor. Yes, we are senators, but this is our governor, and they will work together. I believe many Kaduna people are just saying, wait a minute, is this helping us to calm down and just look at how we can work together, we can live together, we can move together. Permit me to say that what also happened in Zamfara is itself a lesson. The last speaker described the winning of election in 2019. We do all remember that actually in Zamfara, the election was not announced as PDP won in 2019. What happened was that there was a court verdict that came up just few days to inauguration that even gave PDP the mandate. So they were actually the ones announced as winners during the election in 2019. It was the court judgment that there was no party officials or recognized parties officials that conducted that. So that primaries that brought about every candidate under APC was not a legitimate primaries. And that's how the PDP got it. Probably that's why after some time the governor wanted to go to where he feels there's strength. But the people have also shown him, wait a minute, whatever happened, we still have our intention, we still have our understanding. We should not also shy away from saying that in Zamfara State, the issue of insecurity also played a very good role in pushing the people for the change that we are seeing that happen. So these are things that we need to understand and know that as politics continue to evolve in Nigeria, many things will shape our politics and bring about the change we desire. We may not have gotten the kind of result we want now, but we will soon get there, because the fact of it is that we are making a good move towards that. The presidential election in Nigeria was an eye-opener. Look at the number of youth that came out. Look at the kind of spirit that people put into it. With all the lapses that probably we may say came from INEC and others, but there was that enthusiasm by people, commitment from people, desire by people to see they take Nigeria as their own. Then I quickly just speak briefly about Kano. I'm so impressed that today we don't just have 2 or 3 political parties giving us leaders. At least we have more than 2 or 3 political parties giving us leaders. We have the APC, we have the PDP, we have the Labour as a party giving us governors, we have also NMPP, and we have ABGA. So Nigerian multi-democracy or multi-party democracy is beginning to get better. In the past, it will end with just 2 parties. I think that is not good enough unless we just want to run a 2-party system. So there is a progress coming, though it is slow, but something new is happening. Those who are discouraged, please don't be discouraged. I think this is how the nation that we are admiring today started, and they are making progress, and they've made progress. So we too will reach where they are, but there must be dedication and commitment. When, you know, one of the examples I remember is that on the day of the gubernatorial election, most people didn't come out on time because they felt that on the day of the presidential election, INEC did not show up. On the day of the gubernatorial election.
Well, okay, thank you, Reverend John Joseph Hayab. Actually, I mixed up the results of Sokoto and Kaduna, you know, so I appreciate your correction there. But that's something he said, Kinsley, before you take up your question, yes, in connection with the godfatherism, which may not come to an end, in linking that there's nothing, you cannot, you know, separate people from each other. There must be interest. But that's something that happened. He made reference to America and elsewhere. Recall the primary between Obama and Clinton, the primary.
Hillary.
Yeah, it's Hillary Clinton. Now, you know, Obama seemed to be the choice of the majority of Democrats, especially the people in the higher, you know, echelon of the party. But Clinton refused to step down in terms of, okay, we have agreed on this. No, they contested. Right. So, you know, that perhaps will, you know, divorce the issue of godfatherism, that sometimes you don't do internal politics to say, look, okay, you may be my choice, but go and contest with this man who insists on contesting. Then go and do your campaign and get your man in there, and not to say, look, no primary, my man must go. You know, that is the nature of Nigerian own version of godfatherism.
Absolutely. You're talking about the role of super delegates, for instance, in the U.S. Party primaries, as well as mentorship, which is the key thing, and the support base. Of course, there are a number of power blocks that would say, this is what we want, because we think that you encapsulate that vision, and then you'll be able to drive it. So we'll support you. That's the point. I think that, gentlemen, thanks a lot for the views that you have raised. When we started the conversation yesterday, we also focused on process. We're looking today at outcomes, and the comments that you have made are all quite interesting. We're looking at the numbers, who has won, who has not won. But there are concerns about how these elections have played out, especially now at the governorship and state houses of assembly elections. No fewer than 21, other accounts say 27 persons have died as a result of the violence unleashed. Many examples of voter suppression, destruction of voting materials, as well as disruption of voting. So the question then arises whether what we are seeing now is a true reflection of the wishes of the voters. I want to go back to Reverend John Hayab to let us say about the process. Many would say the process has been quite worrisome, and before the elections we had a number of programs which we labeled, you know, the battleground states, and some of them, as I said yesterday, didn't quite disappoint, even in the sense of the metaphor that we used it.
Truly speaking, the process has a lot of flaws. The process didn't meet the yearnings and the expectations of many Nigerians. The process wasn't as transparent as we expect and wanted it to be. But that is why politics is It's a game. Not every time the referee blows it the way we want as spectators. Not every time the referee blows it the way we want as players. But one thing is sure, at the end there will be a winner, there will be a loser. Then sometimes when you go back to talk with the referee, he will tell you where he made mistakes and things that went wrong. So the process had flaws. One of the flaws of the process is education. We didn't inform Nigeria, or Nigerians didn't understand INEC and have education very well. I'll give you this quick example. Not many young people who went into this election really understood what INEC said about beavers. They came in with a different idea of beavers. As far as they are concerned, beavers was something else different from what they now saw at the day of election. There was this social media of distortion of truth and spreading falsehood that also created problem about people understanding whether the process was right or wrong. I'll give you another example. There was a time INEC just announced her officials. These are the officials that will conduct election. Before you know, everywhere on social media, INEC is not going to use professors of universities anymore. She's only going to use her staffs. And that was the story. That story went viral all over the country. But there was never a time INEC said so. So when people came and started hearing professors announcing results as returning officers, they just concluded the election was rigged. But you see, they really didn't know that INEC never promised that. It was a misinformation. So there were a lot of misinformation. And I quickly advised that, look, INEC should take away this information aspect to another group, not INEC doing the information and doing everything. Sometimes this kind of confusion. INEC have so much in our hands to handle, not to be doing the education and other things. There are groups around that can help INEC to do that education, sensitize people even to the grassroots. So people never had a clear understanding of what was INEC's rule. Someone even said to me, his idea of beavers was that he would just go and cast his vote on the machine and the result will go. He didn't know that you need to cast your vote and it will still be counted manually, and it is when it is written, then they will snap it and send it. So people really have a wrong understanding. You will be shocked to know that these things really happen, because I discussed with people and I just couldn't believe myself. But I am also in this country and I know the difference between what INEC said and what you are saying. But I know that one of the reasons why people got many information wrong, the social media took up presenting issues that are not true and confusing people. Then you know there was this also real religion and other angles that came into play. Sometimes if you don't manage your emotion, you don't manage the things you think you know, everything that happened, you will be faulting it, thinking it was done against you. I do believe that I have my own interests. I do believe that I have my own choice. I do believe that I have what I want. But I will not just sit down and give a blanket story that this rig was rigged or this was not rigged. I simply ask myself, did we do our strategy and campaign right? Did we do it and go back to where we are and find the right message to deliver to the people? So people have made choices. Yes, one or two things may have not gone right, but at the end, a result has been announced. And as you said, the issue is about the peace of Nigeria. If results are announced, they are announced. If you have any other thing, you either go to court or you find a mature way of addressing it. But anything outside that, you are not going to help Nigeria, you are not going to educate Nigeria, you will instead create more tension for Nigeria. INEC are not spirits, they are friends, they are neighbors, they are people together. And some of us are also part of INEC. I have children who did outdoor stuff for INEC. I don't know how they conducted themselves there. Someone may also think that they were also wrong. So before you go into that, you have to look at the general thing. Where did we get it wrong? Honestly, the information dissemination, not that it was no good, but people distort it, people misrepresent it, and now they are crying thinking that certain things were not done right. Well, in reality, it's the information they have on their head that was not right.
John Joseph here, we appreciate your views on the question my colleague put to you. Yes, politics is a game. You referenced a football referee who could make mistake in administering football, who may apologize much later to say, look, I made a mistake, I'm human, and what have you. But in terms of election, yes, it's a game, but then it's a game of integrity as well. You are talking about people's lives, people's destiny, development of the population of this country. That is what people are thinking when they go to vote, not necessarily the process. But the process that we're talking about is integrity oriented. For instance, a professor was caught on camera, the social media, talking about, doing thumb printing, and she couldn't talk, she couldn't speak. So it's about integrity. This is a professor for crying out loud. If you have to do it, in a wrong way, find a way to fine tune it. But Nigerians are worried that if it's okay for the nation to be sustained, which is paramount, which is undisputable, it has to remain a nation and have to forge ahead, but not necessarily by doing things wrong deliberately, if you ask me. Because Nigerians are making comments here and there. If you go to the streets of Nigeria, you listen to ordinary Nigerians. That's where I get information from. You go to ordinary Nigerians, the artisans, to have a feel of their thinking, and they're very intelligent. They have understanding of this politics and Nigeria as a nation. When you hear them discuss mechanics, vulcanizers, barrow pushers, and all of that. So that's what we're talking about. So the process that Kingsley raised is very, very important. And I'd like to bring in...
Kieran, I know you want to bring in but just to chip this in, because the Reverend J.J. Hayab was using the football analogy, that a referee might come later to admit to errors that he made in the course of the match, but that doesn't reverse the outcome of that match. And who would have thought, as we speak, Barcelona is facing prosecutors for over allegations of payments that were made to the chief of referees in Spain, in La Liga. I mean, everybody knows that La Liga is the toughest. And there are allegations that these were bribes intended to sway referees so that they have more favorable officiating for Barcelona. That's the point. The issue is all over the place. So who would have thought that Barcelona would engage in
that kind of thing? So that's it. So Dr. Okonzua, please come in here on the issue of the process.
The process was flawed. And his football trope also appeals to me. We have to keep improving the process. For football, the goal line technology, for instance, was to reduce the volume and intensity of controversies of whether a goal has been scored or not. And we also need a lot of vigilance as to develop our institutions. Diego Maradona's hand of God is still a blot in the history of football. It's supposed to be, that is actually the easiest way to call a foul in a game of football. But he's called a vital goal at a crucial match using his fist. So when people are competing, they want to gain advantages. It's actually the safeguards you have that will constrain them. So as we advance as a country, we have to make sure all our institutions are really alert, all our institutions are effective, and the kind of education we are going to put in place to persuade our citizens themselves that they don't have to be desperate in supporting one candidate or the other, that the ultimate game is to confer a mandate to the person on the person who believe will best express it at an electoral cycle. So all these things will have to go in parallel at the same time. And talking about killing people, I don't think that should be well received. Nobody should actually die because he's gone to vote. As a citizen, we encourage our compatriots to come out and exercise their civic responsibility, and nobody should lose his life or her life in the process. So it is true, we are still evolving. It is to be hoped that the election we are going to conduct in 2027 will be better than the one we have just conducted. And for those who have grievances, just like the Reverend has said, let us persuade them to please approach the courts, and let us see how the courts will review the issues based on the facts they are going to receive. And talking about even the government of national unity, of government of competence, and so on, it is quite possible to actually share the spoils, based on competence, not just the kind of patronage. All those ones, this issue of zero-sum game that makes the game very, very tough and fierce, do or die, as the former president would say. I think we have to set the atmosphere to really make our electoral processes competition for mandate that whose legitimacy will not be in doubt, not mandate obtained by violent means. That would be unfair.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Okonzua Sawaru, and the other guests. We're going to have to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
There are certain moments in the day when I need my me time to just unwind and indulge.
Cadbury 3-in-1 Hot Chocolate.
Now available in 30 grams and 450 grams.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, abeg, it all old, make it do die, make everybody for rest, to ailing parents, uncles and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
Dialogue, empathy, love and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
All I need to say about the second River Niger Bridge, 21 years ago, as I came onto this throne, it will normally take you 3 to 4 hours to cross the bridge. I mean, if you are going to Lagos, you spent almost half your time on the bridge, and you were stuck on the bridge before you came across from Asaba this morning. Now, could you imagine how the people of Onitsha and Asaba have endured such a situation for over 25, 30 years? This is reality. So we cannot overestimate the importance of the second River Niger Bridge. To express appreciation to our President, Muhammad Buhari, for being the vehicle for the execution of this monumental project.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on NTA's network service. All our 3 guests are still with us from Benin via Zoom. That's regular Dr. Okunzuwa in Kaduna. That's our network center, the Reverend John Joseph Hayab. And our Sokoto Network Center, Professor Tanko Yahaya Baba of the Department of Post Science at UDUS. I want Professor Tanko Baba to respond also to the issue of the process dissonance in the 2023 elections. And just, by the way, to recap some of the unsavory incidents. We know right now that no fewer than 21, some estimates say 27 persons have died in the course of the 2023 elections. That's one. 2, we also saw the attacks that took place in the course of voting on voters, polling officials, and several others. In Lokoja, Axis, some polling officials were rescued as they were being assaulted. In Kaduna, EFCC officials who had gone ahead on their duties to prevent or arrest persons engaging in voter inducement were attacked, and some of them hospitalized. So, what is your take on the process dissonance, and what do we need to do?
process is a mixture of success and setbacks. You know, Konzoa and Reverend recapped quite some areas in which the electoral process is flawed, and the strength of also the process. And I think, let me mention that in Nigeria, the context of election is that whenever the elections comes up, it is always regarded as a period of emergency, and that some laws are, so to say, informally suspended, you know, largely on account that the system is overwhelmed. For instance, when you talk about the security dimension of election management, you see that the security agencies are usually overwhelmed to intervene and control and impose law and enforce law and order. And sometimes also institutional limitation on the part of the security agencies also play a part. You have that the government, those who control institutions and those who are in power at state and the central level will also use the security agencies at their own advantage. And that explains why you see crimes committed in the broad daylight, you know, right from the process of electioneering campaign trains and entourage moving with gangs of youth well armed in the presence of security agencies, and no one dare make any move to arrest and prosecute these very particular groups of people that are executing the electioneering campaigns. And the party in control, the opposition party are all involved. All the parties are involved. And this is because, for instance, you cannot, in a state where the governor is in control, who is the chief security officer of that state, who moves on the road with thugs, well armed, to teeth, who is also in control of the security agencies in the state, who could not arrest these groups of youth in the governor's camp, the security agencies will dare not also arrest and prosecute armed gangs or armed youth in the other camp. So this institutional weakness and the interferences that is greeted with it by politicians and those who are within the corridors of power makes it tough and difficult for security agencies to actually do the needful in terms of arresting and prosecuting people. And that is why violence is prevalent during election, before, during, and even after election. And there's also this problem of capacity. When you talk about ratio, the ratio of security agencies to the population, this is also another dimension that the state needs to address. How many security personnel and officials do we have at every polling unit? You go to a particular polling unit with about 1,000 voters, you see 1 or 2 security agents. Some of them even unarmed. Even armed 2 security personnel cannot control over 1,000, a crowd of 1,000 people. And you go to other go to other points, you see complete no presence of security agencies. But this also a challenge of information dissemination. This issue of beavers has caused quite a huge sense of enthusiasm on the part of Nigerian voters. People thought that the beavers is a magic, that you cast your vote and the vote delivers. And this came as a result of the intense mobilization and sensitization done by INEC. INEC was clear enough to show that this is a machine, it's a technology, this election will be technology driven in the sense that the beavers will not only authenticate and accredit the voter, but it's also going to be responsible for transmission, direct transmission, not only direct transmission, but real-time upload and transmission of result. And this was not broken down into concrete information as to the steps that will be taken and the process and what it takes to upload and transmit results. And that explains why the presidential election collation and announcement of result was greeted with protest, saying that you promised to upload this result real time, but here we are, results are being collated and announcement is awaiting, but no result is uploaded on the INEC server. This is a situation that INEC and institutions need to manage well. And another dimension of it is that, just like I said, the elections are really considered as emergency period. Nobody seems to be prosecuted for any offense. Take, for instance, late delivery of materials by an independent electoral commission. Of course, quite a number of stakeholders are involved in the delivery and distribution of electoral material. But no question has ever been asked. If one polling unit or a particular registration area received its materials late, which prevented voters or frustrated voters not to wait for those materials to arrive for them to cast, investigation need to be made as to who is responsible for late delivery of these very particular materials. And if the logistics department of INEC is responsible for that, then of course INEC is a public institution, and those who are responsible for undermining the process within INEC should actually be fished out and punished. If, for instance, those stakeholders that are outside INEC who are engaged to actually help support INEC in the distribution and delivery of materials, at least an agreement must be signed. And this agreement must be binding legally on those parties that actually are involved in the delivery, because they are paid. Now, if they are found wanting or they reneged in the agreement of distribution of this material, they should also be brought to book. So the point is that nobody seems to be seen punished or prosecuted for whatever offense committed. The magic or the celebration with the 2022 Electoral Act is that not only that electoral offenses are well captured in the Act, but that there are also provision for prosecution and sentence for individuals, groups of individuals who are found wanting as far as the Electoral Act is concerned. But what we need to do is to be swift in actually identifying those who undermine the process within and outside the INEC, and around and within the institutions, and at the level of individuals and groups who are involved in undermining the process or breaking the laws of electoral laws, and let the public see them being prosecuted. And such will deter. You know, Reverend was actually making reference to analogy with soccer, and of course we actually appreciated that refereeing in football has gone a very long way. Not only that the goal line technology, but of course the VAR, the VAR, the video assistant referee is now intervening to reduce the human element or human interface.
Thank you, Prof. Really, I'm interested in this last point that you have just made. Sorry for cutting it short. We're trying to manage the time that we have left for the program. I like that knowledge of the VAR, which assists the the referee in the pitch. If he makes a mistake, he'll go and recheck, and takes a decision.
Yeah, but we have also seen instances where the VAR, depending on the perspective you are looking at it from, it's wrong, because there are assistant referees who are also manning the VAR.
Why VAR is very important is that it has a line. If a crosses, it crosses.
No, it's not just a matter of there being a line. It depends on where the offense is committed. You saw that in one match that Arsenal played. You also saw that last Sunday in the match. Mark Asensio had netted what seemed to have been the winner against Barcelona.
Exactly.
That happened.
Exactly. Now you, Prof mentioned the institutional weakness which was witnessed, especially when it concerns the security agent. Well, I'll just tell you what he also talked about: the capacity of the security agents who were posted to man the elections at different police stations across the country. Now, what happened on Saturday in Enugu? I happened to be there during the elections in Nsukka area. I want to give a to really say that some security operatives really did a good job during this election. As a matter of fact, there's some hoodlums who had planned to mar the elections in the Nsukka area. They were not even allowed to operate. The ones that did operate, led by one council chairman, they were arrested. There were over 20 of them. And then there are many others who were actually arrested in a hotel where they were camped. So before they started operation, they swooped on them and got them arrested. So some did a good job. Some security operatives did a good job in this election. But of course, because of the mere fact that the policemen posted at polling units are not armed, of course the hoodlums can easily attack the polling units. It's as simple as that. As we round off this edition, let me bring in again Reverend John Joseph Hayab. I know you'd like to touch on certain points raised by the other speakers, because some of them are actually also spotlighted on some of the points you earlier made.
Yeah, I think we have been looking at some of these illustrations I gave from something that I'm not sure is what I mean. You see, the technology that INEC introduced cannot replace the place of integrity in the heart of INEC officials. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in Nigeria is that people don't do things with integrity, want to give themselves a good name, want to ensure that they don't put something that would destroy their country. So technology can be fine, but the integrity of those who operate the technology can also be a failure. So when I come to talk about integrity, I'm talking about the person involved, knowing that Nigerians have given you a trust and you need to deliver that trust, and the trust is that you be transparent. The fact that even what did the Electoral Act says, did you follow it? So these are the issues. Don't forget that in this same new Electoral Act, it is clear that the returning officer can reverse himself in 7 days. So there is an opportunity for correction, but do they have the will, the integrity to make correction if they notice and understand that correction? What I did earlier was not to give a blanket condemnation of everybody and everything, because I think that's what we like doing in Nigeria. We just condemn everybody and everything once it does not favor us. I think we must grow above that to separate where things were done right, where things were not done right, and when we need correction. Even the soccer we've been talking and repeating ourselves, those technology were not there. It is years of experience of error that brought about the development of the technology. So because we are also learning through this process, let us take some of these lessons and see what do we improve going up in the future. Whether in the place of technology, what are those things that we need to improve so that it will reduce the human error. But there are some, as you rightly said, security men who did excellently. But you know, we also have a security man who was sleeping on duty. We have many of them who, look, in one of the polling units where I observed, someone just walked in there and brought out money in a broad daylight. I was standing right there. I wanted to give to an official, and I protested. I said, no, you have no reason giving them money here. The fact is that he wasn't even ashamed. As I speak with you, I have his photo because someone quickly snapped him, then he flee. We have his photo because these are the issues, and the policeman standing there didn't come after him to stop him and do anything. You see, that's another bad policeman. But there are other places, as you've cited example, the policemen acted responsibly, acted patriotic, and stopped evil men from doing so. Every Nigeria have a role to play going forward. And preparation for elections are not just done in 2 days. There are things we do through, as we just end this, let's continue with other understanding. Where did we get it wrong? What are those things that didn't work? What are those things that we will correct? What are those things that people need to be better informed and better prepared before election? I hope that probably before 2027, we'll be singing a new story. And I hope that before 2031, we may even have gotten it perfectly right. But somehow we've started, and this is the new time we brought in technology. Whether we say it or we don't say it, there may be a lot of flaws, but first is the integrity of the mind of the person who is responsible.
Reverend Hayab, thank you very much there for the points that you have raised. Quite interesting about the performance of security officials. And the point also needs to be stressed that the security officials performed much better, if you may, on the 25th of February when we had the presidential election. A number of arrests were made of potential offenders on that particular occasion. And of course, unfortunately, on the 18th of March, there was a video from somewhere out of Bauchi, 2 police officers who were armed, standing by and watching a gentleman who was busy distributing raw cash. And I think the new banknotes that was being distributed to voters or wherever they were on that occasion. Before I bring in Okunzuwa for his closing thoughts, I just would like Professor Tanko to clarify this for us in terms of what happened in Sokoto. This is not, of course, to mock anybody, but just to have an understanding of it. Tambuwal is outgoing governor of Sokoto. He was the DG of the Atiku campaign organization or presidential campaign council. And of course, the candidate he has supported in this governorship election has lost. There is a video that is circulating on social media. I wouldn't know whether you have seen it, of Ayo Fayose, the former governor of Ekiti, who was celebrating the fact, in his own view, that the candidate of Tambuwal was defeated. And the closing sentence in that video by Ayo Fayose is that Tambuwal is gone. Is Tambuwal really gone?
say he's gone or he's still around. Remember, his contest of the Senate seat is still inconclusive, and that will be decided in a week's time. But I think what has happened, and the viral video, the video that went viral of Fayose, is I think a hangover of the sin of Tambol with that he is alleged to have done during the presidential primary elections, PDP presidential primary elections, where he stepped down for Atiku and then ordered his supporters to vote for Atiku, and eventually after the he was made the of the Atiku's presidential campaign. And of course that also generated a crisis within the party of the G5 and the inability of the party and the leadership and the top hierarchy of the party to reconcile with the G5 governors. And that is actually largely responsible for the setbacks the PDP presidential bid had suffered. And then it also came down from to say that it handed him back home for losing the governorship election to the leading opposition party in the state, the APC. But of course, I said earlier that Sokoto State, we knew what has happened in 2019. Tambol won his governorship election only by a margin of 342 votes, 342 votes. You can only imagine that in the next election is also going to be tough. In this context, he is not the one contesting for election. He is of course, his anointed candidate was the one that is defeated. It remains to be seen what will happen in the next Saturday's supplementary election, where Tambol is involved in an inconclusive election. Whether he win or lose, that you can tell. Whether he remains or he's gone.
All right, thank you very much. I hope he remains. I think the question here, gentlemen, is the issue of having a credible election. You know, what really worries me is the fact that we have elections. Ghana just had elections the other day. There was peaceful election. There was no snatching about Ghana over there. There are other African countries that have had their elections. There was no ballot snatching. There was no beating up of people. There was no intimidation, voter intimidation or something. It didn't happen in those African countries. And we are giants of Africa. That's what we call ourselves. And we cannot have an ordinary election, civil responsibility. As simple as that. So when people say we are evolving, that time will come, I believe you. But from the 50s, we started having an election in Nigeria. We've been telling the same story. He's been telling the same story in different dimensions. You know, when you bring beavers, they develop another thing against beavers and work against beavers and bring trouble about beavers, that is a perfect creation meant for this election. And simple as that. That's the problem that we are talking about. We should change as a people, get reoriented and begin to behave well. That's what we're saying. It's not as if the election was not properly planned or executed, but our behaviorals, I mean, didn't tell a good story of who we are as Nigerians. And Dr. Konzo, please, let's get to your closing thoughts.
Well, the lapses we have discovered in our electoral process in our recent outing are deplorable, but just like we have admitted, we have to take an evolutionary approach to the milestones we cross. And in particular, I have to say Nigeria is not Ghana. Nigeria is a lot bigger, it's a lot more complex than Ghana and so on. But we as Nigerians have a lot of responsibility to conduct our affairs acceptably and probably admirably. So let INEC and all the associated institutions go back and study what has happened during this electoral cycle and do better in 2007 or the timetable elections that will take place before then. For now, those of our compatriots who have grievances, we should please persuade them not to escalate the violence, to approach the judiciary for whatever remedies that can be afforded them. So that's what I should be saying.
All right, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Okunzuwa Osawaro. We appreciate you. You joined us via Zoom from Benin today. Thanks a lot always for your contributions. And from Kaduna Network Center, we were joined by the Reverend John Joseph Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation. Thank you very much for your insights. Also from our Sokoto Network Center, from the Department of Political Science at Usman Danfodio University there in Sokoto, Professor Tanko Yahaya Baba. We appreciate your being with us on the program this morning. All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kyrian. You might do have a great day.